Welcome to the Smart Sales Solutions podcast, where we learn to implement intelligent solutions in a complicated marketplace with your hosts, Don Cunningham and Rich Rudnick.
Welcome, everyone, to the Smart Sales Solutions podcast. Our subject today is, will technology eliminate the need for realtors in the next decade? I'm your host, Rich Rudnick, and joining me today is Don Cunningham. Don, thanks so much for joining us.
You're welcome. Looking forward to this one.
Well, and me too. So you have a lot of experience, over 33 years that you've dedicated, 15 years growing your own personal business, and you've seen a lot of change. And then the last year, coaching top performers. So I know you'll help us out on this. So I'm hearing a lot of conversations lately about artificial intelligence and technology and how that's affecting real estate and industry. And this is not new to you either, right? It's not new for me. Right. You've seen a lot about that. And listen, technology affects all of us. I think most of it's good. We are also seeing it take jobs away when you think about going to the grocery store and seeing self-checkouts instead of cashiers. In some cases, they're talking about, for example, assembly lines, having robots replace them.
Right,
Sometimes computers or robots are replacing people. So what's in it for real estate? How is it affecting? What should we be expecting in the next 10 years? Because we're coming into the 2020s.
Yeah, that's a pretty tough thing to really predict completely, but there are a lot of things that are happening right now. When you look at the world, we look at and you mentioned a couple of things. Grocery checkouts or self checkouts. You've got travel agents are no longer in existence because of Expedia and all those platforms out there, and then you've got situations like. Does anybody remember the record player? We went from playing LPs, long play records, vinyl records. That industry was around for over 60 years. It's gone. And in the course of the last 10 years, 12 years, we've lost cassettes. We moved in from 8-track. Do you remember 8-track, Rich?
Of course.
Yeah, 8-track. Cassettes. Then we went into CD-ROM. And today, almost everything is streaming, whether it's streaming video or streaming audio. And each one of those things changed industries. While there were jobs that were lost, there were also jobs that were gained. There are also industries created. And that's one of the things, I was selling real estate in the 80s. And when computers really started coming on board, people were getting technology was just starting to really ramp up in the industry. One of the things that people kept saying is, we better start looking for another career because this one's going to be gone in 10 years. Well, it not only didn't go away, but today it's come back in such a way. Today, and we'll talk a little bit more about this as we go through the show, but we look at the technology has advanced us so much that instead of having this 3-inch thick MLS book that we used to have where we page through to get to the right houses
right.
with crappy pictures, today we've got professional pictures. Every realtor out there can narrow
drone videos. We have drone videos now, right?
Drone videos. Again, these are new industries that have come to us. So when you look at what's happening in the industry right now, one of the challenges are, and Zillow has been a double-edged sword. Zillow has been a godsend to a lot of agents out there who use it for lead generation for buyers and sellers. But Zillow's got a plan. Zillow wants to take over the industry, just like Amazon starting to do some of the things, Redfin, and I think you mentioned it several times, and they'll let you go ahead and finish those off as far as whether they're profitable or not. Mm-hmm. But they don't launch those in the beginning to be profitable. They have a big picture in mind. And that's one of the kind of the scary parts to us, because we don't really know all of their intentions at this particular point.
Well, right. And I think we should expand on that. And those are really good points, that they're coming in with one goal and one goal only, right? It's total market domination. And
Right.
really most enterprises come in that way. So there's no doubt that when we think of lower skilled, entry level assembly line positions are very vulnerable in the future in general, outside of real estate, for being replaced. And the big question now here is in real estate, and we have, I would say, two driving forces, driving narrative in real estate about the need for not using a realtor. That is a past experience people will have in the future. You won't need a realtor. So the two driving forces are, I would say, discount brokers and then this artificial intelligence or technology. So like you mentioned, I remember starting out in real estate, we would get the MLS books updated every 2 weeks. Remember how quickly things got out of date? Well, things are updated instantly now. By the minute, when you load in a new listing, it's on right now. It's on live. And when we think about the multi-offer scenarios that we have in so many parts of the country, if you didn't have that, we would just be antiquated in the past. And so I want to talk to you about the need for embracing technology because it's so important. But we have these two driving forces. So what is happening? Who are they? What impact are they going to have? Because you started going down the Zillow road here, so expand on that too. But who are the discounts? Who are the technologies? How's that going to impact us as realtors?
Well, when you look at you look at situation. Matter of fact, when discount brokers have come and gone for years, and there are a time when they really do thrive. But whether or not they're profitable, that's debatable. I mean, long term. In other words, they're I can't even think of some of the names of these discount brokers, but right now Redfin is one of the big ones, and I think I read it somewhere, or maybe it was from you, that talked about where they are as far as being profitable. They're not. So you start to look at these things, and you know that there's an intention there, but the reality is that can it exist? You know, when you think about department stores, and you can go to Walmart and you can buy. It's packed. Those parking lots are packed. You can go in there. You can buy a shirt for $15. But you know what? Nordstrom's is also packed, and you buy a better shirt for $50 or $70 or $100. And both parking lots are full. And the reason is because many people want full service. And it takes full service in this litigious world that we've got. In other words, discount brokers do not provide you any kind of, they provide you with the basic legal coverage, E&O insurance, and so on and so forth, but they're not in it to protect anybody. They're in it for their small commission. They want to move on. And I'm not dissing them. I'm just basically saying that's the only way they can afford to do what they do. So, for years we've been saying the same thing. We're going to find ourselves without these discount brokers are going to take over, and they do impact the market when things are really hot, especially when sellers are, when we are right now, where we are right now, which is low inventory everywhere across the United States. So they will thrive. But when those numbers change, when we get up to 6, 7, 8 months worth of inventory, where we normally are, that's a normal market, they don't do as well because realtors are more necessary in that process. So I'm not sure if
I think that's really good. So I think when we're looking at, you mentioned the Zillow, and they're actually partnering with Amazon. So initially they're coming in and giving values of homes, and so people are thinking, well, I don't need a realtor because I know the values of home, and I don't need the MLS. Well, that's not the MLS, and it's not giving the whole comp status. It's just giving active homes. Plus, they're setting generally higher price points than the CMA MLS complete package of numeration will come to another. They're inflated. So they're coming in and giving data that wasn't available before, but now they're wanting to come in and buy up the market share. So you don't need a realtor anymore, according to them. You can just work directly with them. They'll buy the home. So they're testing this in several markets, right?
What happens when they buy the home?
Right. So they're testing in, they're buying, they're the buyer also. They have lots of money, deep pockets. They're trying, for example, a couple markets, Vegas and Phoenix, where there's massive tract home subdivisions. That allows them to get the data they need, right? So they're kind of limited within those areas. They're gaining in market share. I believe there's going to be a conflict when you're providing the numbers and then you're also buying the homes. We'll see where that goes.
Right.
I think some markets, and they want to expand, they're expanding quickly. You're going to see more of that.
Right.
But I want to respond to that also later. And what does that mean for who? You were right on the line with the discount brokers. They're back. Why? Because the market is red hot, and even some FSBOs are selling.
Right.
But I remember you were talking about back in the 80s, and I remember in 2002, they prophesied or predicted that technology would eliminate the need for realtors by 2007. So what happened? Well, certainly now technology is much more advanced than 12 years ago.
Right.
I mean, the breakthroughs are incredible.
Right.
What they didn't realize when they made that prediction was the financial meltdown, number one.
Right.
So you had the financial meltdown, which now created the more complexity and the need for even more navigation through the process. You had falling prices, so nobody wanted to buy the real estate either, by the way.
Right. Right.
And then discount brokers went away. So there was a combination of things. So there are two different entities, that's this discount broker and technology. Sometimes the discounts use technology for utilizing the services. So they didn't expect that to happen. And I'm going to say here, and I'll save it towards the end, they're not thinking of the next decade's demographic, which I'm giving this prelude for the next 10 years, what will happen. And I believe there's a missing point there. And we'll talk about that too in a little bit, but it's much more advanced. So really, how serious of a threat is this, Don, to the full service agent? Technology, we can't be Pollyanna. We need to know that there are these forces that are taking a bigger chunk in the market. But what kind of a threat are we looking at here for the full?
Well, I think the threat is serious. You know, you and I have talked about this before, and where we used to work off of the Pareto principle of 80% of all real estate was sold by 20% of the agents, and right now we're looking at more like 95% of the real estate is sold by 5%. That's the advancement of individuals creating teams, which is almost like mini brokerages. And so we've got those powerhouses who are getting more, and they're utilizing technology in the very, very best ways that they possibly can. Some are making it, some aren't. But the bottom line is they are taking a huge part of the market share, which means it leaves you with a lot less real estate for the 95% who are out there working. Mm-hmm. But when you look at you look at today, and you think, wow, this technology has been a real boom for realtors for the most part. But the one thing that computers and robots can't do is they can't relate. And this is now and has always been a relational business. And so if you think computers are going to take over, you're wrong. Matter of fact, when I sold real estate, our purchase agreement was one page. You look right now at a complete contract, not counting the docs that are drawn by the lender. You're looking at about 80 pages before you close a deal. That's a byproduct of technology and legalities and just all the different aspects, all the different legal aspects of real estate today. And do you want to leave that up to somebody who's a discount broker who doesn't, basically is just checking the box, and once you sign the agreement, they're done with you? I don't think that's. I don't think that. I think that's going to be a challenge for a lot of people. Matter of fact, it's a tool that we use as realtors to convince people to use Realtor. So
right. No, you're actually absolutely correct. Here's what they're, I believe, creating in the marketplace: an option of either a full service agent that will help navigate and negotiate you through the most difficult transaction in your life, or a discount brokerage with no representation. And I don't know if they realize that divide that they're bringing, but the smart, the brightest, the best will navigate through that, right? So it's really a dichotomy, but that's what's happening. But you mentioned Redfin, so you said I had some stats, and I have some stats. So I have them written here to make sure I get this right. So Redfin, I've been hearing their name come up a lot, and it really feels like a threat to a lot of agents. Redfin so far has done 43,000 transactions. Sounds like a lot. That's 0.65% of all the transactions, or in other words, roughly 0.5%.
Right. Just
Okay.
over half. Yeah.
All right. They've generated $119 million in revenue. All right. They lost 42. They lost $42 million with their model. Their game plan is now to raise their fee. Okay.
Right.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Once you get that message out. So they're finding out that, it's not so lucrative after all. They're actually losing money.
Right.
They had formulated an agreement with RE/MAX that they just severed a day or two ago. After 2 months, RE/MAX severed out, and I don't know if it was pushback from agents, but they were going to get into a portion of the market that RE/MAX wasn't able to process and get a kickback or something. They severed their agreement with them. So this is in a strong market. As you mentioned, when the market and the inventory climbs, discount brokers go away because there's this misnomer that a house will sell on its own. An agent is overpaid. It goes so fast and they make all this money. And yet, and I know you can attest to this, in these strong markets, what happens? Well, multiple offers happen. So how are you going to negotiate multiple offer scenarios to know which one is best? Sure, it's moving quicker, but it's much more complicated. How do you know if you're saying yes to the right transaction
deal
or not?
Yeah.
Exactly. And so if a market adjusts, and this market this won't last forever, the discount brokers will be gone. And I'm very convinced that will happen just like it did before. So technology and AI will eliminate positions. There's no doubt. And it has been for the last 2 or 3 decades. And we've talked about that. And Zillow and Amazon will take a bigger share of the market. But whose share are they taking? You mentioned the 95 and the 5%. So I want to break it down to both of those. I believe the top producing realtors, the top 5%, are able better to navigate past and through the discount because they bring value. They understand the concept. They're more engaged with their clients and past clients. They know how to level shift the conversation away from price and commission to values, purpose, and results. In fact, that's what you and I do with our clients, helping them and creating that value and delivering 6-step dynamic presentations and so forth. But
one other thing that they, I'm sorry.
No, go for it. Go. Yeah.
One other thing I was going to say is that these big teams have specialists, whereas an individual agent, that 95% doesn't have that. They've got to wear all the hats.
Yeah.
These teams, they have listing partners, they've got buying partners, they've got administrative, they've got closing partners, they've got all of these, and so they cover a lot of ground where they can do. Instead of doing 1 deal a week, they can do 10 deals a week and still cover all the bases. But technology plays such a big part in that, with DocuSign and all of these simple things that we didn't have, 30 years ago. So,
right. Well, I want you to stay on the subject because I want you to address the top 5%. But before we go there, just as you're going down the same lane, we do need to embrace technology. And at a certain point, I think we're going to both agree it's not going to eliminate all realtors. That's not going to happen. There will be some they're going to take a portion of the market. I'll talk about what that is. But for those who want to be relevant, for those who want to be a career agent, let's say they're newer, let's talk about the technology that they must embrace that's out there they're using. And especially we're seeing now the big brands, Keller Williams, RE/MAX, coming out with certain apps for tracking buyers and what they're looking at and getting flags for that and so forth like that. So it is imperative. We must stay relevant. Right. So maybe talk about what are some of those technologies you're starting to go down the track of DocuSign and so forth that you need to embrace to be successful.
Well, I think the basic one, which has gone so far, it has advanced so much over the last several years, is your basic database, your contact management software. Keller Williams, and I don't want to misquote this, but it seems to me that 3 years ago they were planning this big rollout where they'd spend $40-some million on this very complete program. Well, it just was released here, I think 3 months ago, and it does have, it's got all the bells and whistles. But so did Top Producer. The average agent didn't really know how to use it because it was so complex. The more user-friendly these become and the more technology-oriented we as agents become, the more valuable this technology becomes to us. So your basic contact management software and the ability to follow up utilizing that contact management software is going to turn these, especially the higher end people, the businesses that are doing the 5%, they're turning them into basic mini brokerages that are be available for sale to some of these people, like, some of the people who are buying up brokerages. They'll be buying up teams and turning them into brokerages. So, the tools that we use for sale by owners and expireds, there's Land Boys, there's the Red X, and there's Espresso Agent. These are tools that are really valuable for agents who really want to make a connection with for sale by owners or expireds and be on the cutting edge for those kinds of things. So those tools are really valuable. We used to have to drive around and look for sale by owners, and every Tuesday you could look at what expired because of our books. They only expired every Tuesday or every other Tuesday, specific Tuesday of the month or whatever it was. So technology has taken us to such a level. And when we go to search most MLSs today. Matter of fact, I tell my clients, I'm sure you probably do the same thing, is we don't need to show 20 houses, because if you know what you want, I can narrow that search down for the top 3 houses in your category, and you really should buy one of those 3 houses.
Right.
You don't have to look at 50 houses like we did back in the olden days.
Right.
So those technologies are really advanced.
Right. I think that's good. The CRM that's sitting there, and it's been sitting there for years. And I don't know about you, but most new clients coming in have very little. It's rare. I'd say 5% are actively involved in their CRMs.
I would agree.
And they have to get it. So the technology that's been sitting there for years and years are there. I would say if you're in these branded agencies that have these apps for buyers and connecting with them, to get involved with them and use them. I think the basic, whatever your company has, get on and use them, because most of them are sitting there, and we got to stop being afraid of it. We got to stop being frustrated because we don't know how it works, and that's not how we've done business. We just have to embrace it and utilize it, because technology does help you do business better if you embrace it correctly. There's no doubt about that.
Let me throw one more thing out there, because we're touting technology, and there's a number of areas that I kind of watch out for. And one is I get really nervous when people say that they put somebody on their drip campaign, and that drip campaign is automatic, and these guys will have their leads getting drip campaigns for weeks and months down the road, and they're very passive about it. And that's like a death trap to me, because number one, if that's all you're doing, you're not creating a relationship. If you're not staying on top of them, or if you just plug them in and automatically send them 20 listings every day, you'll be gone. You're not even part of their picture. They're getting 20 listings from 20 other people too. So
right. Okay. That's so important, because it's eliminating the discipline, and we would all probably rather take the path of least resistance. We would probably rather all have leads fall in our lap. In fact, these technology companies sell that. They sell the magic pill. I don't want to be working and calling with my leads. I want them calling me. I want them raising a hand to me. And the problem, as you say, comes in with that. We lose our discipline and skill. Right. And what we also don't realize is those leads are not just going to us. They're going to hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and repackaged over to other agents all the time. So you're really just more and more and more of a number, and it changes that. No, it's very, very good. So I see an opportunity here as this noise and narration gets louder, let's say with the discount brokerage and the need for not having via technology for an agent of the top higher skilled agents through their feature benefits and developing their objection handling skills and everything else. So what are some things, other key steps the top producers should do in this time to leverage who they are, to offset this push of the discount broker? How can they leverage where they are in the marketplace to become better and stronger? Let this really define them, actually. So what some advice do you have for the top agents?
I think one of the keys to this, and this is one of the things that from a coaching standpoint that we really, really kind of hammer home, is know who you are, know what your strengths are, know what you're selling, know what you have to offer those individuals. Utilize technology, because when it comes to, the CMAs that we do for people, back when I was selling real estate, man, the top people were using color. Everything's color today, but back then it was like 45 cents a page, so it's like, this was pretty special. And we had our binders that we would bind them all up and like that. Man, you can put together a great presentation with technology today. And all it is just plugging in data and printing it out. So that's one thing. But the other thing is being able to say who you are in comparison to others. And it's not we're not going in there to slam anybody, or, I'm a firm believer in building ourselves up, not tearing somebody else down. So if we've got what we do, know what your percentages are. What's my list to sell average price? What's my average days on the market? What's my average price range? All of those things are valuable. And the more data, the more information that I know, the stronger I'm going to come in that presentation. Again, going back to when technology came onto the scene, people thought, well, now we can do everything by computer. But so much of the data needs to be explained. And in other words, what does this mean? What does this mean? You say, days on the market. What does that mean to me? To the average person out there, it doesn't mean anything. I don't know what it means. So when you explain that typically my sales take place within the first 30 days. I get when it comes to what my average list to sell price, Great tool if you've got a good list to sell price. If you're overpricing from the get-go, you're going to have challenges. But if you're pricing correctly and those things sell within 30 days, they also sell at a higher price, which is great because I can show you that I can sell your house, charge you 6 or 7%, and you'll make more money. You'll make more money if I work with you than if you do it for 2% with somebody else, because I'm gonna make you more money.
Right. Yeah, no, I think that's good. So right down in the line with you on when we are doing our feature benefit, we're showing why they should choose us. Right. Like you say, it's never about speaking negatively toward anyone else. The whole concept that everyone has to do and learn is to level shift the conversation away from price and commission, which is what the discounts are doing, to values, purpose, and results. And learning those skill sets and showing them that you're an agent of values and purpose, or an LO of values and purpose, that it matters who they choose, that they see themselves benefiting like your clients do through your testimonies. You eliminate your competitors without mentioning them. And like, as you mentioned, we can deliver presentations on PowerPoint. Do less with paper. We can send them the file after it's been delivered. Right. And then the CMA and so forth is separate. I just see that as such a big opportunity for them to really sharpen those skills and just keep moving on. Like you say, this is really a relationship game. I'm going to move into the next, which will be the subject for next podcast too, the next decade's largest demographic. Everyone's overlooking this. Right. Technology, it's less important. It's all about the relationship. And everyone needs to get on this. They need to determine their portion in this. All right, let's talk to the 95%.
Let me interrupt you one more time. There's a statement that I use it oftentimes, and especially when you're talking about discount brokers versus full service brokers. Mm-hmm. And in the absence of value, price always becomes the issue. So when you're looking at, people who look for discounts they're not necessarily looking for, how much money I'm going to have in my pocket. They're looking at how much it's going to cost me to sell it. And that's where they miss the mark. Because as a discount broker, bottom line is I don't care whether it sells or not, because I'm going to get some upfront money anyway. So, and I don't have to do anything. So I get $1,000, $1,500 or something up front. Who cares if I overprice it?
Right. Exactly. No, such a great quote, right? In the absence of value, price is the only consideration. So let's talk about the 95% agent, the lower producing, the newer agents. It's the largest share of or a head count of total agents. All right. The small percentage does most of the business. I see that what's at risk are for the lower end producing agents. So some of them are just getting started, and it's hard. It's hard work. Some of them probably won't be in business anyway. They're just not doing a lot of transactions. There's most people. But for the one that's in maybe getting started, they haven't hit their stride, and they really want to be a career agent. They really are dead set on making this happen, and they have some hills to climb. Now they also have these external forces at play, saying you're not needed and everything else. What do? What is their focus?
Well, it's interesting because there's a lot of real estate. Even though 95% is being sold by that top 5%, that still leaves 5%. What the number that I'm never quite sure about is, out of those 95% that we have, what percentage of those are actually doing the deals? Because there's got to be 80% of those that are actually working with Aunt Sally or Uncle Joe, or, they're doing a deal here, a deal there, maybe 2 deals a year, 1 deal a year, no deals a year. So that's a lot of agents out there not doing anything. But, that top percentile is fluid, and it's always changing. People get out of the business, people move on, people move to different locations, change careers, all kinds of things take place.
Mm-hmm.
They don't stay up with technology, and the next thing you know, they're in a different industry. So it is fluid, and that 5% is an open door to those 95%. But I don't think there's much more than 20% of that 90% who are actually climbing a ladder. And so you look at that 20%, and I think there's going to be room for them to make a decent six-figure income. And those below, the other 75% or so, are going to be looking at, really not careers, but more like substitute realtors, or however you want to look at that. And again, I'm not dissing them. I'm basically just saying there are those who really want a career in this business, and that career is available. But you got to do what the 5% are doing in order to get there. And the 5%, in most cases, have coaches or trainers, or they've got people on staff to help them, to hold them accountable to where they're going, and making sure that we're on track. You start setting goals for 1 million GCI as a team, you better be on track. I mean, that's basically $80,000 a month worth of revenue coming in. Do I have the right team? Do I have the right team members? Are they doing what they need to do in order to hit my monthly nut, in order to hit those targets? These targets are becoming huge in some of these, in some of the big boys areas. And then with the up and comers, bottom line is you can't start off with a staff. You can't start off with buyers agents. And I don't think everybody should. I mean, this idea of teams is actually way overblown. I mean, it's crazy. You can make a good living yourself. And when you get to a level where you need an administrative assistant, you can afford to do that. But for the most part, that's that 20%. They're not going to build the huge teams, but they're going to make a living in this business.
Well, and I think that the point here that you're building your business and you're trying to grow and you're on the bottom. I think your key point was do what the top 5%ers do.
Right.
So they have coaching, they have training, they have specific systems and processes they're learning on, working on their skills, have specific goals and plans.
Webinars, podcasts, training. We do training a lot.
All of that. So you have to invest in yourself. You have to build your skill set up. You have to run this like a business.
Right.
And put that in place as we go. So one demographic the forecasters are forgetting about. So 2002, and it's hard to predict the future. So I'm not blaming them, but they didn't realize there would be this massive financial upheaval, which really turned everything upside down.
Right.
But there's a demographic that the people who are saying realtors aren't needed and technology will replace and discount brokers will replace is coming, and it will be the largest percentage of transactions in the next decade. Who are they? What are they missing here, and why won't technology be an issue with them?
Are you talking about baby boomers?
Well, talk, buddy. Let's go. Talk about those guys. Who are the baby boomers?
Baby
Other
boomers
than you and me. Other than you and me, who are the baby boomers?
I don't know the exact classification. I think it's from 1953 to 1960.
Let me help you out. 1946 to 1964. So it's right after the war, 1964. So 46 was a year after World War II. A generation is 18 years. 1964 is the last. That was the year I was born. I'm the youngest of the baby boomers. You're further down the line there. We won't say you're older. You're in kind of the sweet spot of where most of the baby boomers are, actually.
Dude, I'm in the middle of that 46 to 64.
That's right. Exactly. You are.
Yeah.
So Well, what about the baby boomers? What's the big deal?
But, honestly, that's such a great subject, but I think we're going to have to put that off and actually do a whole blown series on that, a whole blown podcast on that, because there is so much information, and you have been kind of a leader in this area. And I really think that we really need to kind of hold off on that. Let's make this a teaser for our next podcast, to be honest with you, see what the old people are going to be doing next time.
Well, let's do that. So, okay, here's the deal. The next podcast, Serving Seniors the Right Way, Caring for the Next Decade's Largest Demographic, is our next subject. But let me just throw out the teasers, just to get everybody and understand the reason this is such a big deal. Just think about these statistics. And it may be kind of overwhelming, actually. You think of Medicare, roughly predictions being insolvent 8 to 10 years. You think of Social Security basically being insolvent about the same time. What's going on here? Let's go back 50 years. Let's go back to 1969. When you retired at age 65, the lifespan was 70. You lived 5 years and you passed away. When Medicare was created, the amount putting in, the whole understanding was if you had a bad knee, you would get a cane. When you passed away, you turned the cane back in. Now we do knee replacements. We're living way past 70. We're living into our 80s, our 90s. Your mother's in her 90s. My dad is 91. My mother's 87. We're living longer. The problem is we have other problems. There's not enough money for retirement. The people who are hitting 62 to 65 had a large portion of the retirement wiped out in the crash a decade ago. There's a large number who are not quite ready to retire, however they want or need to. But most of them own property. They own real estate. You go to the end of that, the end of the boomers and frankly, the older builder generation, those that grew up during the Depression and World War II, they're now moving toward assisted living. So we have this demographic, a money challenge. The reason why Social Security and the reason why Medicare is becoming insolvent is that the system's being overwhelmed.
Right.
They're being overwhelmed from a numbers count.
I've got the answer.
What's that?
Medicare for all.
Okay. That's another podcast that we'll have to work. That's not the answer. But
we know it's not the answer.
Right. It's not the answer. But here's the thing. The in mass, there's going to be a transference of wealth in this next decade the world has never seen. The people who own the assets, Don, are those 55 and over. And this larger group, they're in the position of needing to sell. And we need to address this. The reason why it's not going to be affected by technology is most of them aren't engaged in technology. Their needs are greater. We need the right people to help them navigate through. This is enormous. So we will talk about that next time. All right.
Okay.
But that is our teaser, and that's where we need to really put our focus and attention to. So, Don, a great subject today, right? Great conversation. Why don't you put a wrap on this? Let's go ahead and put a wrap.
All right. Hey, I just, this technology thing that we've been talking about, again, I think we have to embrace it. The predictions that have been in the past have proven to be false. I think that technology creates more opportunities. I think, the subject that we're going to go into next time is going to create more opportunities. You think the number of people today who check in at the airport without ever talking to anybody is like 80%. You look at that and you say, well, now there's nobody working at the airport, and we got TSA, which actually doubled the population of airport employees. So it's one thing after another that changes industry. But technology has always increased the ability to do more. So who knows what kinds of things are going to pop up in the next 10 years within the real estate industry. I It's very hard to predict. But I'm an optimist. I'm not a pessimist. So I'm gonna go with it's going to be some exciting times.
Well, I'm basically in the same camp. I believe discount brokers will take business away from you if you let them. If you build and develop your skill set, you can overcome that. And our clients are doing that all the time. Right. Technology will invade. Zillow will do a certain segment of the market. I don't believe they've made money yet in their enterprise. They have deep pockets. But at the end of the day, the higher producers will actually do well and thrive. It may reduce the number of those who probably shouldn't be in the business anyway, because they're not contributing. I think the biggest picture here looking forward is how can we serve the next decade's largest demographic? We'll talk about that. Don, thanks so much. Great being with you today. Let's do this again soon. We'll jump on and finish the conversation with the largest demographic. Thank you all for listening.
All right.
And stay tuned. Looking forward to having you all listen in on our next podcast. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Smart Sales Solutions podcast. For more information, go to smartsalessolutions.com.